was the Cedar Creek was the kind of community where front porches always had rocking chairs, where children rode bicycles freely until dusk, and where Sunday sermons echoed with messages of unity and forgiveness. Nestled outside a bustling southern city, it was a predominantly African-American neighborhood, proud of its heritage, its tight-knit bonds, and its reputation as a safe, family-oriented haven. The Chambers family, residing in a tidy brick ranch house on Magnolia Lane, seemed to embody the very essence of Cedar Creek's ideals. Evelyn Chambers, 42, was a beloved figure in the community. She sang in the church choir with a voice that could bring tears to your eyes, organized the annual summer festival, and her sweet potato pies were legendary at every potluck. She worked as a nurse at the local clinic, her hands always gentle, her smile reassuring. Her husband, Arthur, 45, was a deacon at Berrien Tabernacle, a respected elder who volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club, his deep, rumbling laugh a familiar sound at neighborhood gatherings. He owned a successful small construction business, providing jobs and stability to many in Cedar Creek. They were the epitome of a power couple, admired and respected by all. Their daughter, 10-year-old Nia, was the light of their lives, or so it seemed. A bright, vivacious child with braids that always seemed to bounce when she laughed. Nia excelled in school, loved to draw, and had a boundless curiosity about the world. Her parents doted on her, lavishing her with affection, encouraging her every pursuit. Arthur often called her his little princess, swinging her high into the air, his booming laughter filling their home. Evelyn would spend hours with Nia, reading stories, helping with homework, and braiding her hair, their bond appearing unbreakable. To the outside world, the Chambers were a portrait of domestic bliss, a family blessed with prosperity, faith, and enduring love. Yet, beneath this polished exterior, like rot spreading unseen beneath blooming magnolias, a darkness had begun to take root. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly, in the quiet hours after Evelyn had left for her night shifts at the clinic, or when Arthur would take Nia on special daddy-daughter outings. Nia, intuitive and sensitive, felt a shift in her father's touch, a chilling possessiveness in his gaze that replaced the warmth. It was a gradual erosion of her innocence, a silent violation that began with whispered commands, or little secret, princess, and veiled threats if she ever spoke a word. She was too young to fully articulate the nature of the horror, but her spirit, once so vibrant, began to dim, replaced by a quiet vigilance, a constant fear of being alone with her father. Her once bouncing braids seemed less lively, her laughter less frequent, her drawings filled with darker, more subdued colors. But Arthur was cunning, a master of manipulation. He would shower her with gifts, take her to her favorite ice cream parlor, and then, in the safety of their home, exert his perverse control, making her believe that this special love was a bond only they shared, too precious and too fragile to expose to the world. Evelyn, absorbed in her demanding work schedule and the rhythms of community life, initially failed to notice the subtle changes in her daughter. Nia, an expert at compartmentalization, learned to put on a brave, cheerful face for her mother, a forced smile that masked the terror she felt inside. She would cling to Evelyn more fiercely on those rare days her mother was home, a silent plea for protection she couldn't voice. Arthur, meanwhile, maintained his impeccable facade, showering Evelyn with affection, bringing her flowers, praising her tirelessly for her strength and dedication. He was the perfect husband, the perfect father, the bedrock of their family, and Evelyn, blinded by love, trust, and the comfortable rhythm of their shared lives, saw no reason to doubt him. The foundations of their family, however, were slowly being corroded by a secret that would soon erupt with devastating force. the subtle shifts in Nia's behavior, though initially dismissed by Evelyn as typical childhood phases, began to accumulate, forming a disquieting pattern. Nia developed a nervous tic, a quick, almost imperceptible blink of her right eye when she was anxious. She started wetting the bed again, a regression that Evelyn, the nurse, found unusual for a 10-year-old. Her once voracious appetite waned, replaced by a selective pickiness, pushing food around her plate, sometimes excusing herself to the bathroom with a sudden wave of nausea. "Nia, honey, are you feeling all right?" Evelyn would ask, her brow furrowed with concern. "You haven't touched your grits." Nia would force a small smile. "I'm fine, Mama, just not hungry." Her eyes, however, would dart to Arthur, who would be sitting at the head of the table, his gaze unreadable, a subtle pressure radiating from him. The most alarming change was Nia's increasing reluctance to be alone with Arthur when he suggested their special daddy-daughter time, trips to the park, fishing excursions, or even just movie nights at home. Nia would invent elaborate excuses. "I have too much homework, Daddy," or "my stomach hurts," or "can Mama come too?" Arthur would dismiss her excuses with a chuckle, a playful reprimand. "My princess doesn't want to spend time with her old man anymore." "Well, we'll see about that." His words were light, but his eyes held a steel that sent a shiver down Nia's spine. Evelyn, though mildly puzzled by Nia's sudden aversion, would attribute it to Nia growing up, wanting more time with friends, or perhaps just a phase of teenage rebellion starting early. She failed to notice the fear in Nia's eyes, the way her daughter would subtly flinch if Arthur moved too close. One sweltering afternoon, Evelyn returned home unexpectedly early from a cancelled clinic shift. The house was quiet, save for the soft murmur of the television from the living room. She heard Nia's voice, a thin, strained whisper, followed by Arthur's low, insistent murmur. A knot of unease tightened in Evelyn's stomach. She knew Arthur was home, as his truck was in the driveway. She walked quietly towards the living room, her nurse's instincts, finely tuned to detect distress, now on high alert. She paused at the threshold, her hand still on the doorknob. What she saw froze her in place, shattering her world into a million jagged pieces. Arthur was on the sofa, Nia beside him, looking small and vulnerable. His hand, so often a symbol of comfort and strength, was positioned in a way that made Evelyn's blood run cold. Nia's face was a mask of terror, her body rigid, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. Arthur was whispering to her, his face close to hers, a look of chilling satisfaction on his features. Evelyn felt a primal scream rise in her throat, but no sound escaped. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drum of disbelief and horror. This was not a comforting father. This was a predator, her husband, her daughter. The unthinkable was unfolding before her eyes. "Arthur." Evelyn's voice was a ragged whisper, a sound she barely recognized as her own. Arthur froze, his head snapping up, his face contorting from perverse pleasure to a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. Nia, seeing her mother, let out a choked sob, tears now gushing freely, her little body trembling uncontrollably. "Evelyn," Arthur stammered, scrambling to compose himself, his hand hastily withdrawing from Nia. "Honey, you're home early." What a surprise. He tried to force a smile, but it was a grotesque parody of his usual warmth. Nia was just, "We were just talking about something private." A little daddy-daughter talk. But Evelyn was no longer seeing the man she married. She saw a monster, her eyes, filled with a terrifying mix of betrayal and dawning realization, flickered from Arthur's contorted face to Nia's terrified, tear-streaked eyes. Nia's silent, desperate plea was unmistakable. Evelyn had caught him. The truth, ugly and raw, lay exposed in the afternoon light. The sanctuary of their home had become a cage, and the protector, the very foundation of their family, was the architect of its destruction. The illusion of perfection had finally, brutally shattered. The air in the living room crackled with unspoken terror. Arthur, caught red-handed, stood frozen, his facade crumbling like dry plaster. Nia, seeing her mother, let out a choked sob, burrowing into the corner of the sofa, her small frame trembling uncontrollably. Evelyn stood rooted to the spot, her mind reeling, trying to reconcile the image of the loving husband and devoted deacon with the predator she had just witnessed. Get away from her. Evelyn finally managed, her voice a low, dangerous growl she didn't know she possessed. Her nurse's training, years of disciplined observation, had just confirmed what her heart initially refused to believe. The subtle signs, the nervous tick, the bedwetting, Nia's aversion to Arthur, it all clicked into a horrifying, undeniable pattern. Arthur, cornered, resorted to his usual tactics of manipulation and intimidation. Evelyn, calm down. You're overreacting. It's not what you think. Nia and I, we have a special bond. You don't understand. This is private. He tried to step towards her, to placate her, to regain control. Don't you dare come near me. Evelyn snarled, her hand instinctively rising to shield Nia. I saw you, Arthur. I saw what you were doing. To our daughter. To my baby. Her voice broke on the last word, choked with a pain so profound it felt physical. The confrontation escalated into a bitter, hushed argument, punctuated by Nia's silent sobs. Evelyn threatened to call the police, to expose him, to burn his life down. Arthur, sensing his carefully constructed world collapsing, shifted tactics. He pleaded, he begged, he shed crocodile tears, portraying himself as a desperate man battling his own demons, begging for forgiveness. Evelyn, please, don't do this. Think of our family. Think of Nia. What will this do to her? To our reputation in the church, in Cedar Creek? They'll never look at us the same way. We'll lose everything. He played on her deepest fears, the judgment of their community, the public shame, the destruction of their seemingly perfect life. Then, his voice dropped to a chilling whisper, a strategic strike at Evelyn's hidden vulnerabilities. And what about you, Evelyn? My business, your job, our future. Do you want to throw it all away? For a misunderstanding? He reminded her of their shared dreams, the respect they commanded, the comfortable life he provided. He planted the seed of doubt, subtly suggesting that exposure would not just ruin him, but devastate her and Nia too. Evelyn looked at her trembling daughter, then at the man who was both her husband and a monster. The image of their family, the picture of perfect love and respect, flashed before her eyes. The church, the community, the whispers, the shame. The weight of it all pressed down on her, suffocating her. She was a woman of immense pride, and the thought of their life unraveling so spectacularly, so publicly, filled her with a terror that rivaled her outrage. Arthur, with his cunning manipulation, preyed on this fear, twisting her devotion to their reputation into a perverse form of complicity. In that agonizing moment, Evelyn Chambers made a choice. It was not a choice born of love, or even fear for Nia's immediate physical safety, but a chilling calculation. The thought of confronting the public shame, of demolishing their meticulously built life, of facing the inevitable fallout from exposing Arthur, felt unbearable. She had always been a fixer, a preserver of order, a woman who put the family's image above all else. This choice, however, was not to protect, but to preserve. To preserve the illusion, no matter the cost to her daughter. Her voice, when it came, was cold, devoid of the warmth that usually characterized it. "What do you want, Arthur?" she asked, her eyes fixed on him, a terrifying blankness replacing the horror. Arthur, sensing a shift, a perverse opportunity, took a step closer, his eyes gleaming with a predatory light. We keep this in the family, Evelyn. Our secret. You understand me now. You're part of this. You'll make sure Naya understands too. This is just our special way of loving each other. A family thing. He was not asking her to simply keep silent. He was inviting her into the darkness. Evelyn looked at her daughter, who was now watching her with wide, terrified eyes, silently pleading. But Evelyn, in that moment of profound moral failure, looked away. She looked at Arthur, at the power he wielded, at the life she stood to lose. And in a horrifying twist of maternal instinct, she chose to join him. Not out of affection, but out of a twisted desire for control, a perverse rationalization that if she was involved, she could somehow manage it, contain it, prevent it from destroying her life. She would protect the family's image, no matter the cost to Nia's soul. All right? Arthur, Evelyn said, her voice now flat, devoid of emotion, where we'll do this your way. But we do it together, and Nia will understand. A chilling, almost imperceptible shift occurred in her eyes, a dark light flickering to life. She hadn't just consented to complicity, she had stepped into the role of a co-conspirator, driven by a perverse desire to control the narrative, to ensure her own survival within the crumbling illusion. The lines between protector and abuser had just blurred beyond recognition. The choice Evelyn made that afternoon plunged Nia's world into an even deeper, more terrifying abyss. What had been a singular torment, inflicted by her father, now became a dual nightmare, sanctioned and even participated in by her own mother, the sanctuary of their home. Once a place Nia desperately longed to be, transformed into a constant, inescapable source of dread. Arthur, emboldened by Evelyn's complicity, grew more brazen, his monstrous acts continuing with an almost chilling normalcy. But it was Evelyn's participation that truly shattered Nia. Evelyn, the woman who had always been her anchor, her safe harbour, now moved with a detached, clinical efficiency, enforcing Arthur's perverse demands, sometimes even initiating them herself. Her touch, once comforting, became cold, her gaze distant, devoid of the warmth Nia remembered. It was as if a part of Evelyn had died, replaced by a cold, calculating automaton. You need to be a good girl for your daddy. Nia, Evelyn would whisper, her voice devoid of emotion, as she prepared Nia for Arthur's visits to her room. This is how we keep our family together. This is our secret bond. She would comb Nia's hair, dress her, and sometimes, with a terrifying tenderness, even lead her to Arthur, a silent shepherd leading a lamb to slaughter. The justifications were always the same. For the family, to keep Daddy happy, so no one finds out and we all lose everything. Evelyn's rationalization was a chilling masterpiece of self-preservation. By participating, she believed she was controlling the damage, preventing a greater catastrophe, the public exposure of Arthur, and, by extension, their perfect family. Nia's spirit began to wither. Her grades plummeted. She stopped drawing entirely. Her laughter vanished, replaced by a haunting silence. She retreated within herself, building mental walls so thick that no one could penetrate them. At school, she became withdrawn, a ghost moving through the hallways. Her teachers noticed, her friends worried, but when they asked, Nia would simply shrug, her eyes vacant. She was living a double life: the quiet, obedient girl at home, the withdrawn, silent child at school. The fear of her parents, especially the chilling complicity of her mother, kept her paralyzed. The dynamics between Arthur and Evelyn also twisted into a grotesque parody of a marriage. There was no longer warmth or genuine affection, only a chilling unspoken agreement. Arthur, once the sole perpetrator, now shared his depravity with Evelyn. He sometimes looked at her with a flicker of perverse admiration, acknowledging her descent into his world. Evelyn, in turn, exerted her own perverse control, carefully managing the narrative ensuring no one suspected. She kept meticulous track of Arthur's movements, his mood, subtly steering him, ensuring the abuse remained contained within their home, protecting their public image at all costs. She became Arthur's enabler, his co-conspirator, and in her own twisted way, his silent partner in crime. The community saw a strong, united couple, weathering the stresses of life together. They saw a family thriving. They saw nothing of the hell within. Years passed in this chilling rhythm of abuse and complicity. Nia, now 16, was a shadow of her former self. The bright, inquisitive child had been replaced by a quiet, haunted teenager, her eyes betraying a profound, unarticulated pain. The constant violation had stripped her of her voice, her joy, her very essence. She had long given up hope that her mother would ever truly protect her. In her darkest moments, she even blamed Evelyn, the one person who could have saved her, for choosing the family's image over her daughter's innocence. But a survivor's instinct, however dormant, still flickered within Nia. She began to subtly resist small acts of defiance that went unnoticed by her parents. She started writing in a hidden journal, not about the abuse directly, but about her feelings of emptiness, her nightmares, her desperate longing for escape. She also started researching online, meticulously, secretly, learning about how to report abuse anonymously, about the options available to child victims, about the grim statistics of survival. She was quietly, patiently, laying the groundwork for her own liberation. The breaking point arrived on a sweltering August night. Arthur had been drinking heavily, his usual manipulative charm replaced by a slurring, aggressive entitlement. He demanded Nia come to his study, a place of unspeakable terror for her. Evelyn was present, watching silently, her face impassive. But tonight Nia refused, her voice a brittle whisper. "No, Daddy, I can't, please. Not tonight." Arthur's face contorted in drunken rage. "What did you say, girl? You defy your father, you defy us." He lunged towards her, his hand raised. Evelyn, usually silent in these moments, stepped forward, her voice surprisingly firm. "Arthur, that's enough. She's tired. You've had too much." It wasn't a defense of Nia, but an assertion of her own control. She had perfected the art of managing Arthur, of knowing when to rein him in to prevent him from becoming too reckless, too visible. She liked her abuses to remain discreet, hidden. Arthur turned on Evelyn, his rage now redirected. "You think you can tell me what to do, woman? You think you're in charge now? You're just as sick as I am, Evelyn. You enabled this. You liked it. You're just as dirty." He was threatening to expose her, to reveal her chilling complicity to the world, something Evelyn had meticulously worked to prevent for years. He laughed, a cruel, drunken cackle. "And if I go down, Evelyn, you're coming with me. Every secret. Every little sick thing you did. You think you're so pure. Wait until Cedar Creek finds out about Nurse Evelyn Chambers." A chilling transformation occurred in Evelyn. The blankness in her eyes hardened into a terrifying cold resolve. Arthur had crossed a line. He had not only threatened her carefully constructed image, but he had dared to assert a dominance she now saw as her own. She had entered his world to control it, and he was now threatening her control. The plot twist, chilling and definitive, unfurled in that dark moment. Evelyn Chambers had not merely succumbed to Arthur's will. Over the years of complicity, she had not only rationalized her actions, but had found a perverse sense of power, a dark, hidden pleasure in the control she exerted over Nia's suffering and Arthur's depravity. Her initial choice to join him was not just about protecting their reputation. It was about participating, about feeling a twisted sense of agency within the darkness. And now, Arthur was threatening to expose her deeper involvement, her chilling enjoyment of the power dynamic. Without a word, Evelyn moved with the swift, precise efficiency of a trained nurse. Her years of medical knowledge, her understanding of human anatomy, her ability to act decisively under pressure, were now turned to a monstrous purpose. She grabbed a heavy, ornate brass letter opener from Arthur's desk, a gift he had received from the church. As Arthur continued to rant, his back momentarily turned as he gestured wildly. Evelyn struck. One swift, silent blow to the back of his head. He crumpled to the floor, a choked gasp escaping his lips, then another ensuring his silence. Nia watched, paralyzed by horror and a strange, dawning comprehension. Her mother, the enabler, the co-conspirator, had just eliminated the primary abuser. But it was not for Nia's sake. It was for Evelyn's, to protect her own carefully curated image, to silence the only witness who could truly expose her chilling complicity and her own deep descent into depravity. Evelyn turned to Nia, her face calm, almost serene, a terrifying smile playing on her lips. "He won't hurt you anymore, princess," she said, her voice soft, saccharine, utterly devoid of genuine warmth. "He was a bad man. He brought shame to our family. But now it's just us. Our secret." The implication was clear. Nia was not free. She had merely exchanged one tormentor for another. A mother whose love was a chilling form of control, now the sole survivor and master of their dark, shared secret. The call came into the Cedar Creek Police Department at 1:47 a.m. Evelyn Chambers, her voice trembling with what sounded like profound shock and grief, reported finding her husband, Arthur, deceased in his study. She claimed she had returned home from a late night church meeting to find him. Her story was plausible, meticulously crafted. She wept, spoke of her confusion, her devastation. Detective Miles Anderson, a seasoned investigator with a quiet demeanor and a sharp mind, arrived at the scene with his partner, Detective Lena Thorne. The Chambers home, usually a beacon of warmth, now felt cold, permeated by a grim silence. Arthur Chambers lay on the study floor, a clear blunt force trauma wound to his head. The letter opener, cleaned but still hinting at its use, lay discarded in a wastebasket. Evelyn Chambers, composed but visibly distraught, provided her statement. "I don't understand, Detective. Who would do this? Arthur was such a good man. A deacon. Everyone loved him." She spoke of burglars, of a random attack, painting a picture of innocent victimhood. Nia, quiet and withdrawn, was present, but offered little. "I didn't hear anything, Detective," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I was asleep. Daddy, he was drunk. Sometimes he gets loud when he's drunk." Her gaze flickered to her mother, a silent, unreadable exchange passing between them. Miles noticed the flicker, the subtle tension. The investigation proceeded. Forensic evidence was limited. No forced entry. No signs of struggle beyond the immediate vicinity of Arthur's body. It quickly became apparent that this was an inside job. Evelyn, the grieving widow, remained the primary suspect, but her calm demeanor and credible story made direct accusation difficult. The community, shattered by Arthur's death, rallied around Evelyn, offering support, praising her strength. How could such a pillar of the community be involved in such a crime? It was Nia's journal, discovered months later during a routine search related to a separate, minor incident at school, that truly broke the case open. Nia, attempting to process her trauma, had continued to write, detailing not just Arthur's abuse, but Evelyn's chilling complicity, and, finally, the horrific night Arthur died. She wrote of Evelyn's quiet participation, her justifications, and the final, decisive blow. She wrote of her mother's terrifying calm, her promise that it was just us now, when confronted with the journal. Nia initially denied its contents, her fear of Evelyn still paramount, but Detective Harper, who had subtly cultivated a relationship with the traumatized girl over months, gently pressed her. Nia, this journal, it tells a different story. It tells your story. The truth, Nia. We need the truth. Slowly, agonizingly, Nia confirmed the journal's account. The years of abuse. Her mother's terrifying complicity. And the night Arthur died, not at the hands of a burglar, but Evelyn. She described her mother's calculated choice to eliminate Arthur, not out of protection for Nia, but to silence him when he threatened to expose their shared, horrific secret. Nia finally found her voice, a fragile but powerful testament to the truth. Evelyn Chambers was arrested. The news ripped through Cedar Creek like a wildfire, destroying the carefully constructed myth of the perfect family. The deacon, the community leader, the beloved choir singer, all exposed as abusers and murderers. The trials were devastating, revealing the grotesque depths of betrayal and depravity within the Chambers household. Nia, a courageous witness, testified against her mother, recounting her harrowing ordeal. Evelyn Chambers was convicted of Arthur's murder, and the years of child abuse were detailed in court, painting a picture of a woman who chose complicity and then ultimate control over maternal love. She was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, her public image shattered, replaced by the grim reality of her monstrous deeds. Nia, the true survivor, was placed in the care of relatives who lived far from Cedar Creek. Her journey to healing would be long and arduous, marked by the scars of profound betrayal. But she had found her voice, bravely exposing the darkness that had consumed her family, ensuring that her mother's chilling complicity did not remain a secret. The house on Magnolia Lane stood empty for years, a silent monument to the shattered innocence it contained, a stark reminder that sometimes the greatest evils are not committed by strangers, but by those we trust the most, the ones who should have loved us unconditionally. This profoundly disturbing and complex story offers chilling insights into the nature of abuse, complicity, and the hidden darkness that can fester within seemingly perfect families. Firstly, appearances can be devastatingly deceptive. The Chambers family projected an image of unwavering respectability, faith, and love within their community. This case is a stark reminder that abuse often thrives in plain sight, protected by a meticulously maintained facade and the community's reluctance to see beyond the surface. It is critical to cultivate a healthy skepticism and to pay attention to subtle cues, changes in a child's behavior, unexplained anxieties, or a sudden withdrawal. If something feels instinctively wrong, even without concrete proof, it warrants closer attention and compassionate inquiry. Secondly, the true horror of complicity. Evelyn Chambers' choice to not only witness, but to participate in her daughter's abuse is perhaps the most terrifying aspect of this case. It demonstrates how a desire to protect one's public image, to avoid shame, or to maintain a twisted sense of control can utterly warp a parent's most fundamental protective instincts. Complicity in abuse is a profound betrayal that can inflict deeper, more complex trauma on a victim than the abuse itself. For anyone witnessing abuse, whether explicit or subtle, silence is not an option. Intervention, reporting, and active protection are moral imperatives. Thirdly, the insidious nature of psychological manipulation. Arthur's ability to control both Evelyn and Nia through threats of exposure and appeals to reputation highlights the power of psychological abuse. Victims are often trapped not by physical force alone, but by fear of devastating consequences, shame, and the perpetrator's ability to twist reality. It is vital to recognize these manipulative tactics and to understand that the victim's silence is often a symptom of profound coercion, not consent. Finally, the courage of the survivor. Nia's journey from silence to finding her voice, painstakingly documenting her ordeal, and ultimately testifying against her abusers, is a testament to the incredible resilience of the human spirit. for victims of abuse. Speaking out is often the most terrifying and challenging step. It is crucial to remember that you are not alone, and there are safe, confidential resources available to provide support, counseling, and legal assistance. Your story has the power to expose darkness and prevent others from suffering. Thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey through the deepest shadows of family betrayal. If this story resonated with you, if it brought forth uncomfortable but necessary questions about abuse, complicity, or the power of a survivor's voice, please share your reflections by leaving a thoughtful comment below. Your engagement helps us continue to share these critical narratives and foster crucial conversations that can prevent future tragedies. If you found this deep dive into true crime compelling and wish to support our work in shedding light on these often hidden corners of society, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to our channel for more stories that explore the darker side of human nature, always aiming to shed light where it is most desperately needed. Until next time, stay safe, be vigilant, and never underestimate the power of hidden truths.